edition of the Mindset Game podcast, and I'm your host, James Roberts. Before we get started with this week's show, first off, let me take this opportunity to welcome back the regular listeners. And if this is your first time listening to the show, I hope you enjoy this episode and decide to subscribe to the show. And on today's show, I've got Kelly Roach. Kelly is the host of a top-rated podcast, Unstoppable Success Radio, an international best-selling author, and the CEO of Kelly Roach Coaching. So welcome onto the show, Kelly.
James, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's good to catch up with you again. Obviously, I had you on my show, on my other show now. We were talking about off air, I think it was about 12 months ago now. And it's just to catch up really, and see how things have developed since we last spoke.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like it was a blink of an eye. I think that's with the pace of life these days. That's how fast things move. But no, good. Things are constantly changing. I think that for us, this year was very much about empowering the team and getting the team to a place where they can market, sell, and serve, without me. And that has been a very difficult, challenging process, but a very rewarding one. And I would encourage everyone listening to really think about what difficult but very important path you have in front of you that it's important to be working on, because many times we avoid those things, and that's why we can kind of never get to where we really want to be, right? Because those things are really hard to do, right? There's a lot of days I wanted to throw my computer through the window, but I knew that, we couldn't get to the other side of scaling the way that we wanted to, and that I believe we could, without getting that next layer of leaders within my own company ready to be able to perform. So I challenge everyone as we're getting ready for the new year to be thinking that way about what needs to come next in order for you to cross over whatever bridge is in front of you to make your goals and dreams a reality for next year.
And obviously I alluded to it and probably missed a bit of there. Obviously for the listeners that didn't happen to catch our first episode together, can you kind of give a brief overview of what you've done and how you've got to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is working for a Fortune 500 doing sales and marketing and business growth strategy. I was promoted 7 times in 8 years. So I went from being a sales producer to managing 17 locations and a team of 100. And then when I realized I was only making pennies for the millions of dollars that I was making my company, I decided to go out and help small business owners to learn sales and marketing and how to attract clients and how to build winning teams. And so now I run masterminds and group coaching programs, online courses, and do one-on-one work with individuals and corporations to help them market and attract and raise their prices and, achieve their growth goals.
And if we come from it from this perspective now, Kelly, and look at it from a mindset perspective, do you think, obviously, your time with the Philadelphia Eagles as a cheerleader and also your time working with the Fortune 500 company has kind of instilled in you kind of that, we could say, that fight, that dog-like kind of ethos to succeed in life?
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, I hear people, talk about, my corporate, career, my job, and, put that down. And, for me, I believe that every job that you have is very important, and it leads you to where you are meant to evolve to as a person. For me in particular, because what I learned in my Fortune 500 experience is what qualifies me to do what I'm now doing. I especially value my previous experience, right? Because that's how I got to exercise these skills and build these muscles over and over again before I started my own business. So I specifically really value that. And, my time with the Philadelphia Eagles, 1,000%. I mean, it taught me so much discipline, the amount of discipline that you have to not only make that team, but to stay on it, because they did remove people from it. It requires an extraordinary level of discipline, an extraordinary level of confidence, and willingness to really put yourself out there, whether it's in the audition process where you're going up against hundreds of girls and they select only 30 of them, or even once it's game day and you're out there performing in a two-piece in front of, thousands and thousands of people, right? So either way you look at it, yes, I would say both of those things absolutely shaped me. They prepared me, and they're experiences that I very much value and believe got me to where I am today, yes.
And then if we take it from this flip side, do you think, and maybe look at it from a negative perspective now, do you think working in a corporate environment now, and maybe this is your own personal opinion, do you think you have a detrimental effect on, be it from a fitness perspective, but also your nutrition, overall nutrition?
Absolutely. I mean, that's why I started my own business. I mean, that's one of the reasons why. Obviously, financial reasons was one. Fulfillment was another. And then just personal care and my ability to have a personal life and take care of myself was a huge reason for going down a different path, because I found that I didn't have the flexibility and freedom that I needed to take care of myself in the way that I wanted to make exercise a reality, on an ongoing basis, to prepare and be able to, meet my own nutritional needs, which now being a parent, I'm like, oh my God, I'm not even thinking about myself. I'm thinking about, making sure my daughter has fruits and vegetables and has well-balanced meals. And, I think our society and our culture makes it very much okay to treat your body like a machine and just abuse the heck out of it. And we pay the price, and we don't realize that we're going to pay the price until we wake up sick one day or having a breakdown or in the hospital or 30 pounds overweight. But I think it's something that each and every one of us really have to be thinking about, no matter what your career is, no matter what business you want to start and grow, whether you're corporate or you're entrepreneur, we all have to be thinking about, we have big goals and dreams, right? And there is no point in putting your blood, sweat, and tears into accomplishing those goals and dreams if, in fact, by the time you get there, you're going to be too sick, too burnout, too tired, and too overweight to enjoy them, right? So that's kind of my take on it.
Do you think as a society, we maybe look at it maybe too much on the results nowadays, as opposed to maybe, this is my own personal opinion now, maybe say 10, 20 years ago, we looked at the process as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when people think of health or think of exercise, it's to lose weight or to look good, which misses the whole point. I absolutely believe that the reason to be paying attention to your health and your wellness, both mentally and physically, is so that you can sustain a good quality of life, right? And that's like a basic premise that we take for granted, that we don't think about when we're well. But then years of compounding, not taking care of ourselves, it's like a switch. It always hits people out of left field. It's like, boom, the trait frame, comes, and all of a sudden you're in the hospital, or all of a sudden you're out of work, or all of a sudden your whole life gets turned upside down. You weren't expecting it. It's one of those things where it's like, you don't take care of yourself. You don't take care of yourself. You don't take care of yourself. And then it just comes crashing over you. And so I think that, yes, we need to focus a lot more on the process and maintenance for overall well-being, separate from exercise as a means to lose weight or to look good or whatever the case. And I think that's completely missed in our society.
Do you think it's because some people might argue well-being kind of has that connotation with mental health, so to speak?
Well, I mean, I could go off on the mental health thing for you, and I could talk about that for days. I mean, the way that our society treats mental health is beyond absurd. It's beyond absurd. I've dealt with it personally. It's touched my family personally. I know many people who have suffered from mental health issues. The treatment options that are available are so poor and so bad and so wrong. And it's not taken seriously as a real disease, when someone is mentally ill, and it absolutely is a real disease. And we still as a society have not acknowledged it. But we also don't acknowledge the connection between what you eat and your gut health and your mental wellness, and how that impacts your ability to keep functioning mentally at a high level. And there's like no acknowledgement of that. And I don't know if there's like a reason having to do with pharmaceuticals and government and that type of thing as to why this hasn't come along. But I mean, when we're sending people into space, right? There's no reason why we haven't yet acknowledged what mental illness is and what mental health needs to look like, and taking this seriously. This isn't like a fluffy, nice to have thing. Like, this is an essential to our survival as a human race, that we begin to understand that the foods we're putting in our body are causing mental illness, because we're consuming chemicals that were never intended for human consumption, that actually are used to kill animals. I mean, let's think about that for a second. That's what we're putting in our bodies every day, right?
But shouldn't you could come at it two ways now. Shouldn't people be prepared to do their due diligence and maybe look under I won't say under the microscope, but look in more depth? Because I'll have this argument, and we've spoken about it briefly off air, that I've gone now more back into education, and kids will say to me, I will use Coca-Cola as the example now, that it's got like on the can, on the bottle, oh, no added sugar. It's like, I think because I've come from the fitness industry, I can kind of say that's kind of like a smokescreen. Yes, it technically doesn't have sugar in the drink, but it will have some kind of replacement. Otherwise it will taste bad.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's two different sides of it, right? Like, there's us just being ridiculous. Like, soda is bad and there's no good soda, so just stop it, right? Like, we all just need to stop that, right? Like, so you're not going to drink a can of Coke that's going to be good for you, no matter how they like reshape the name of whatever this new release is that it is. It's soda. Okay, so let's just stop. I think there's that. But then I also think there's the fact that you buy a container of blueberries, right? That's supposed to be a superfood. That's the healthiest thing you could put in your body. And now it says right inside of it, wash thoroughly before eating. And why is that? Why is that? Right? So there's two very different sides. It's like, even the people that are trying to be healthy are still consuming these same things, with foods that are natural and are good decisions. We're all put in that situation every day. And then there's us just being silly, right? You know what I mean? Just kind of wanting to convince ourselves that, cigarettes aren't as bad as, they used to be. They only have X amount of tar in them now versus what they did a couple of years ago. Like, right? There's two different, I guess, levels or dynamics there, right?
Oh, yeah, but you could put that down to marketing and marketing alone, because it's trying to sell a product. But that's with me using, reading between the lines. It's like, well, that's not black and white. You're trying to sell me some gray area.
Absolutely. So I just think, we all have to realize that no one is advocating for our health. No one is going to initiate self-care for any one of us. We have to all realize that, like, with the pace of life that we live, self-care is more important than ever. And we have to make space for it, and we have to make time for it, and we have to treat it as an essential, not a nice to have that comes after everything else.
But Kelly, would you not agree that we say come from the ones that are health conscious, so to speak, now? You talked about the blueberry as the example. Could you not then have foods that are closer to home, say from, what's the word I'm looking for? Say farmers markets, and then that it's supposedly organic? You could say the argument on that side. You still don't know where it's come from entirely.
Well, of course, that, and the fact that why should people not be able to trust going to their local grocer isn't going to poison them? Like, I think that is like an obvious essential thing that we should all expect, that if we're making intentionally healthy decisions, that someone else shouldn't be putting us at risk in doing so, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like if you go to McDonald's every day and you eat McDonald's and you drink Coke, well, then you've made the choice that that's the path that you are going down, and you're going to suffer the consequences that come down that. And you are aware, we're all aware of what that means. But if you, on the other hand, are just going to the local grocery store, you're picking out fruits, you're picking out vegetables, you're picking out lean meat, you should be able to trust that you're not going to be poisoned in the process. And, in a way that, of course, it's not going to show immediately. You're not going to get sick eating it, but right, it's destroying your body essentially, and you don't even realize it, So I think there's like, the short term and the long term of everything. And, we all play, an individual role and responsibility in that as well. But I think there also is a major shift that needs to be made in terms of what's okay and what's not,
But it's a difficult one because you brought up, you should trust that your produce is going to be free from chemicals. However, because of the demand for that product now, obviously there's going to be, it's virtually, you can get any fruit or vegetable around the year. And obviously because of that, the utilization of pesticides is going to be greater as a result.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, they're going to be, and I don't think it would be a bad thing for any of us to sacrifice a little bit more. We are in such overabundance now that we take for granted, a lot. I mean, we take for granted a lot. Kids in school now don't even know where their food comes from. They don't even know. Like, I always make it a point to try to explain to Madison, like my daughter that's 3, where her food came from, how it grows, what the plant looks like, where these things are based out of. I think that's so important because we are in such overabundance at this point that, we do demand fruit year round that doesn't even organically grow at that time of year. That's crazy though. Like, you know what I mean? I think it would be okay for us to sacrifice a little bit more personally and be a little bit like healthier and actually appreciate more of what we have. I would welcome that. I'm sure everybody has a different opinion and point of view on that.
But then like certain vegetables, and I think the good example with us would be the Brussels sprout because it is solely available all year round. However, it is it's got a sweeter taste at Christmas, so I can't taste the difference. But that's probably, I've probably got accustomed to it and I didn't like it as a kid, but I've probably got used to it and I quite like them now. But they've said on health programs in this country they have what's the word? Manipulate it and interbred different species so it tastes better. You're thinking, well, not only are you doing them all year round, you're manipulating it for taste. Well, it's all right for people to not like a vegetable. It's a choice. As long as you've tried it once, that's how I was brought up. If you at least try it once, then you don't like it, that's fine. You've taken the necessary steps to at least, enjoy something.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's fine to have likes and dislikes, and not everything needs to be manipulated and hybrid and, whatever, split and, but I also think we are going to see, and I know this is something that, we started growing tomatoes and peppers, and all summer long we eat right out of our own garden. And my daughter will eat the peppers right off the vine, and, that's her snack in the afternoon. And it's amazing. And we're not using any pesticide or any chemicals. It's all organic. And, we're probably just going to get our own little greenhouse and start, growing our own stuff. Everybody kind of knows the common fruits and vegetables that you would actually consume and not waste. And I think we're going to start to see a lot more of that. I hope that people become more aware of what's happening, with our food, and hopefully that the local for local, for us to grow those vegetables that we eat almost every day in the summer, it's like literally no work. My husband goes out there once a day, he sprays them with the hose, and they sit in the sun, right? Like, how hard is that? You know what I mean? So I don't know.
Well, I agree with you in that, Kat, because that's something we do. It's not been as fruitful, the actual production of the fruit, because well, in the UK, it's not the greatest. Well,
Yeah.
it wasn't that bad, but it
Yeah.
wasn't as good as it probably could have been. And the vegetables suffered as a result. But I think that when it grows at home, I think it tastes better than the fruit. But obviously,
Oh,
it's not being flown
absolutely.
around the world as well.
Well, it's fresh and it doesn't have chemicals on it. You can actually smell it. That's the difference. Like when fruit is fresh from your own garden, when you smell the pepper, it actually smells like a pepper, like it's fresh and it doesn't have chemicals that are kind of clouding the taste and the feel and the look and everything else. I mean, you can see like on the carrots how they have it has like the white chemicals on it now. Like when you get the carrots at the store, it's just crazy. So I don't know, but I think that, we all have to kind of look at that critically and say, okay, it's one thing to complain about. It's another thing. What are you going to do? I know for us, we're going to grow more of our own, so we know where it came from. And, I think we all just have to be aware of that and realize that what we put in our bodies does have an impact. Self-care, 100%. There's a direct correlation between self-care and your ability to meet and achieve your goals in life, whether it's business or personally. And I think we all have to think differently today about what we're putting on our bodies than we did a couple of years ago, because now eating healthy alone is not enough, unfortunately. And I think that's very sad, but it's true.
And you brought up a good point there, Kelly, in terms of, like with the greenhouse. Is it because, and obviously most of the listeners possibly won't know this, you are in Pennsylvania. Is it to counteract the winters that you have that you're going to do that? Or is it just to make using the UV rays to better...
Yeah, I mean, we have brutal winters here. So, I mean, December, January, February, March, it'll be like frozen tundra pretty much. So it'll just allow us to grow more and let them live, essentially. We can plant earlier and more will thrive. We planted actually an apple tree 4 years ago. It is now. And last year we got our first 3 apples, but this year we'll get our first tree of apples, which is so, so cool. And Madison, my daughter, eats apples every single day. So we're excited for that. Fruit's a little harder than vegetables though. I don't know if you noticed the same thing. Fruit's a little harder than vegetables.
It's probably because it's the soil will probably have something to do with that.
Yeah. And the climate. Yeah.
And then Kelly, this is one topic we brought up in the other episode. I was quite interested to get your take on it. Obviously, when I spoke to you this time last year, the Eagles were not having a very good season.
Yeah. So this year they're dancing. They're 10-1 right now. So they're killing it. But the Eagles find a way. They have a way to mess things up late in the game. So I'm not doing the dance yet. They're doing the dance. I'm still wait and see, but I'm very excited to see them 10-1. So
is that the Philadelphia way of being a little bit pessimistic and wait to see?
I don't think most of Philadelphia is pessimistic. I think they're over the moon, happy, and I think they're probably rolling with it. I've just, I was with the team when we were 1 game away from the Super Bowl, right? So I know it's not over till it's over. You know what I mean? But I am happy. I think Carson Wentz is an unbelievable leader. I have great respect for him. I think he's brought a sense of integrity and good character to the team that we haven't seen in over a decade. So for me, I'm just excited to see the kind of team that they're rebuilding, even more so than the results that they're getting, if that makes sense.
Oh, for maybe people in Europe, it's a hard one to maybe understand to a certain degree, because obviously there's no promotion relegation, which would be the case in most European sports. So you're thinking, and I raised this with one episode I did with injuries, and he was saying the NFL spends less than a third division team over here on research, for injuries. You're thinking that shouldn't be possible when they're paying people millions of dollars.
No, I totally agree with that. I completely agree with that. So much more needs to be done. Right. I completely agree with that.
But it's a difficult one to understand, because you're thinking, I was a bit perplexed because you're thinking, oh, it's some of the leading, well, it would be the leading sports in terms of payment to their players. You're thinking, well, it's not difficult to invest in research, and it's for the greater good of, you could say, the overall population.
Yeah, I think they don't even want to acknowledge how big the problem is. And I'm sure they feel by investing in research and doing more about it, it's acknowledging this huge problem that it is not being handled the right way and is not being addressed the right way, you know?
Well, they generally, the one that come up is the concussion. It's like, well, that's because the players got together and said, well, there must be a common cause here.
Yeah.
You need to do something about it.
And, you know, and I think that the players here need to do a lot more advocacy for themselves. I mean, they're making millions and millions and millions of dollars. And, you know, they could easily band together and rise up and say, hey, you know, we want this included as a part of our contract. You know, we want these rules in place to protect us. We want, you know, this and this. I mean, with what they are being offered and given and paid, certainly they could redirect the way that was structured if they desired to. I'm not sure why they don't see that as something that they need to be demanding.
But you could come at that from two different ways of argument, because one, you could say it's from an American sport perspective now, it's probably the more ruthless and cutthroat in terms of, well, we don't want you anymore, bang, that you're gone. Whereas it's not the case with, say, the NBA or the baseball, whereas they can't do that because they've got guaranteed money.
Right.
But your perspective saying they should do something about it, do you think it's maybe because, I've made it now, I'm going to look after myself and my family and that's it?
Yeah, I don't know. I would love to ask one of them, like, what their thought process is on that. I don't know.
If you had to guess and give your own opinion.
I mean, I think maybe it's kind of the classic thing where you think it's not going to happen to me. You know, I think, you know, when you think about getting sick, and we were talking earlier about your diet and all of that, we all think it's not going to happen to me. You know, and probably a lot of them think the same way. You know, it's not going to happen to me. I'm going to protect myself. I'm going to be I'm playing this position. I don't have to worry, you know, whatever the case. And I think that, you know, that's probably a lot of the line of thinking, you know. Well, I'll be okay. It's not going to happen to me.
I think I've probably been brought up the right way. I think it's maybe, well, I won't say the right way, but my family is probably more pessimistic than most at times. But you could look at it and say, I'm looking at maybe the worst case scenario at times.
Yeah.
But I am looking at that avenue. What if? Okay, it may not arise, but I have thought about it.
Yes. And I think that might be missing. I think that might be missing.
But then I could probably argue that case with the young people today. They think, well, I would like to do this in the future. And then you ask them, well, what's your backup plan? Oh, I haven't got one. You're thinking,
right.
Well,
you're right. You're absolutely right. That's a great point.
But I think it was maybe because it was instilled at me, how old have I been? About 14, 15. Well, what happens if sport does peter out, you get injured, whatever. Okay, at that particular time, it didn't click with me either. This is what I would like to do.
Right.
It didn't dawn to me. It's like, well, okay, you've brought it up. Well, what can I do? And obviously went to university, did degrees and things like that.
Yeah.
And set myself up for, well, you could say now. And if it wouldn't have been for that talk, I don't know where I'd been. But okay, I would probably been, I do have that kind of a family perspective. They will say to you, to maybe not immediate family, say mom and dad, but my other family who said they were adamant, sport's not a real job. It's because decades ago it was more, you had that as or you could say a side job, but you were working as well, whereas now you can earn a living from that. So they were very much, well, you need to really look at something else. So I had that, I would say, badgering in my ears.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I disagree, but now probably looking back on it, they did have a point to some degree. Okay, I didn't agree with it. Probably still to disagree. I would probably use that argument to younger people when I speak to them and say, maybe more so in this country, because I know what the benefits of going to the US to study is. Well, if you're good enough sport-wise, yeah, or by all means, because they have set on making it professionally. Okay, maybe go down this route, go to the US, get your education paid for, and you could still do sport over there and kind of that way. And you, I would say win-win, because as long as you pick the degree that's going to work out.
Sure,
set yourself up after you've played. If you do go on to make it, or if you finish after college, you can then go into a profession, and you've still been able to, gain life skills at uni and all those.
Yep. Backup plan to the backup plan.
Well, I think it's you could put it down to maybe a change in society. They think, well, if I put these blinkers on and think about myself, and this is or as we talked about earlier, looking at that end result. Yeah. Nothing else matters, but you can't really think about that. You need to have these what ifs. It's probably you could argue that it's that negative thinking at the back of your mind if you think like that, but it is just, and I would argue this point, there is some positives in them as well, because you are thinking. Yeah,
I don't think that's a negative at all. I think it's you always in life should be hoping for the best but planning for the worst, so that you're prepared to handle whichever way things go. I don't think that's negative at all. I think it's just smart, strategic, actually. It doesn't mean that you're not hopeful. It doesn't mean that you don't strive for your dreams and go for your goals, but you should always have a plan. You should always be able to pivot. I tell my team every day, if something doesn't work, you pivot, right? Got to be ready to pivot, like in the moment, and keep moving. So I think that's a great point.
Well, I think we could use that sport analogy that I use. The people do have their blinkers on, and you could come of it in numerous examples with that, in terms of, because the person doesn't agree with somebody's ideology, be it way of thinking, you name it, and it's like, well, I could put my hand up and say I've done it down the years, and people, I think they get a little bit perplexed. It's like, how can you ignore criticism? And I kind of say to them, because it's going in one ear and out the other. I'll take what is positive from what they've said and say negative. What would be the word? Negative. Not negative. Like that, as in the positive reinforcement within that what they've said.
Sure.
I'll utilize this. Everything else is garbage.
Yeah.
Like, yep, that's not important, or I don't agree. And I've been able to do that for years. So I think you could put it down to, maybe that's my personality with being quite laid back. It's like, yep, I don't agree with what you're saying. Okay, there's something positive within that, and I agree with it. Yeah, I'll take that. Everything else, nope.
Yep, that makes sense. I agree. I totally agree.
But I think that probably comes down to mentality. It's being dealing with a situation, and I would argue maybe society's becoming less able to do that, and they don't like having conflict.
Yeah, I think that there's a serious avoidance of conflict. And I think it's good for people to disagree in a healthy way and share different points of view, and to allow that. I think that's very important. I think that's how progress is made. But I think in a lot of ways that's definitely been kind of pushed down,
Well, you could argue, or that would be the term, be it from a banter perspective. If you're going to dish it out, you've got to be able to receive it. And I think,
yes, 100%.
I think, my grandmother wasn't the best at that. She'd dish it out but not take it. Whereas I love it. If you're going to give it to me, you better be able to be ready to take it back, because it's.
Yeah.
And I think some people are quite shocked. It's like, well, here you go. You've said it to me. Bang. There's your response.
Yeah.
but it's a difficult one because, yeah, like you were saying, society's maybe become not accustomed to it, and people don't want to hear another side of the argument. Whereas you're thinking, well, like you said, you're not going to get progress, and you're always going to get that stalemate. Where if you look at it in the reality, nothing is ever going to get resolved, and you're always going to have stalemate.
Right, exactly.
Which is, well, if we look at it from a business perspective, nothing's ever going to get done.
Yes, exactly.
And my final question for you, Kelly, before we wrap up the episode, if you had to summarize what we've been speaking about today into one sentence for people to take away, what would that be?
I would say question everything and think intentionally about what you do, what you're focused on, how you're conducting yourself, and what you really want in every area of life. Don't just get carried away with the herd and just go with what you see everyone else doing. Really take the time to be intentional about what you want your life to look like, feel like, in every area, personally and professionally. And, don't be afraid to kind of pave your own way and choose what you want really intentionally. Be okay if it's a little different than what other people are doing or the way other people are conducting themselves. And, at the end of the day, get yourself into a situation where you feel fulfilled and happy, personally and professionally. And that's living life, is embracing your own individuality and paving your own path that's right for you and you alone. And it doesn't need to be right for anybody other than you.
So once again, Kelly, thanks for coming on the Mindset Game podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been my pleasure, and it was great catching up with you.
You too.
And before I forget, I would really appreciate it if you would be so kind as to leave a short written review, as it helps to get the podcast more notoriety, and it would be more visible in future to others, and thus helping more people, which my guests and I are all about. I would like to wish all the listeners a happy holidays. Once again, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time for another episode of the Mindset Game podcast.